Hello, good evening. So, hopefully we're live, as always. If you're new, hi. All we're doing here is basically talking about what everyone wants to talk about, World of Warcraft related, and just make sure that's off, that's fine. Mythic race started. Obviously only in North America. I mean, the real Mythic race, I suppose, starts tomorrow. That's assuming there even is a race this time round, but we shall see. Limit currently ahead, as far as I can gather. But Tuesday now is the day when my work has decided, oh, you're streaming on Tuesdays, are you? All right, we want you to leave work an hour later than normal. So we have meetings now on a Tuesday for an hour after work. Oh, dear. Good evening, Iron Templar. So, yes. So I only just really got home and had enough time to stuff some food into my face and set this up. But at least afterwards, I don't have to worry about world quests or anything like that, or the fact that if I were a Mythic Raider tomorrow, I would be Mythic Raided, so reading up on strategies and things like that, I can just go, I'm just going to stream something tomorrow. Might not even be World of Warcraft. Don't know. I suppose I will log on at least just to check my cache. I'll log on to check my cache. Probably go back on Lord of the Rings Online again. Hi, Alias. So, yes. And if anyone caught my stream on Sunday, another little bug I'd never even seen. Bug I'd never even encountered. When I was in there, as I jumped up and down, there was a piece of furniture attached to my character, but several feet below it. Every time I jumped up out the floor, the piece of furniture, I don't know what it was. I only saw the little top of it. Didn't go away until we pulled something. No idea what it was. Because, I mean, I'm going to have to talk about this as well. I've got like 3 discussion videos lined up. It could easily run into 4. It's not... Because everyone kept talking Battle for Azeroth when it was coming out. People kept asking me, oh, it's not going to be ready, is it? It's not going to be ready. And I was sort of saying, well, you know, the rate at which they're putting out various things for us to test sort of matches Legion, with the exception that in Legion, we raid tested Emerald Nightmare and Nighthold, whereas we only raid tested Uldir in this beta, and even then a lot of it was very late on in the beta process. Much later than normal. But, you know, the bottom line was the actual content that was out for testing. None of it really did look ready, and now that it's launched, it's not ready. It really isn't ready. So, I mean, I think it's just about holding itself together. I don't think it's a complete shambles. But the sticky tape is very evident. You have the rest of the week off. Oh, I heard about the hurricane. Right, yes. See, we don't have to put up with things like that in the UK. It sometimes gets a bit windy. And, all right, there are some parts of the UK when it gets a bit windy, it's proper nasty. But to quite a small region, really. Same when it rains. Sometimes it rains really hard and people do get flooded out. But it doesn't affect like an area the size of half a state or something in America. Hi, Total Jersey. So yeah, we don't unfortunately. Well, unfortunately, it's fortunate for us. But yeah, we don't appreciate the concept of having to go out and nail everything down. If it's going to be a bit windy for us, basically, a tree mat. You can't nail a tree down; it's already in the ground. If it blows over, it blows over. That's bad luck. But yes, nice and temperate, which is why we're always moaning about the weather, because it's the only thing to complain about, quite frankly. But I'm quite liking it now. I like the weather. It's nice and cool again. All that stupid hot weather is gone. We're going into winter. Everyone else is moaning because it's not like, oh, it's a bit cold now. Oh, good. I like it cold. Hopefully it also means I don't get up at silly o'clock in the morning with the dawn waking me up, although it still is doing. Didn't want to get out of bed this morning. Couldn't work it out. Sunday, I had to get up at 6:30 in the morning because I woke up at 5 o'clock, couldn't go back to sleep. Go back to work today. Well, I was back at work yesterday, but today in particular, I didn't want to get up. Right, are goblins as bad? No, goblins are fine. I have no issue with any race in Warcraft apart from gnomes, they're just ridiculous. Tauren are also ridiculous, but they're more ridiculous in certain roles. They're not universally ridiculous. Like, for example, I'm playing Horde now. I created myself... No, I didn't. Did I? I did create a druid, and I made it a Tauren druid. I have no issue with Tauren druids, because they shapeshift anyway, so they get away with it. It's fine. They actually look quite cool, the Tauren druid, their forms as well. They're fine. Have I seen Az's latest rant on Warfronts? No, I saw that there was one. But the thing is about Warfronts, they are shit. They were shit from the start. I haven't really seen anyone say they've enjoyed them, apart from a community manager from Blizzard. You know? And far be it from me to accuse anyone of lying, but they may genuinely enjoy it. But at the same time, even if they didn't, even if they hated it, they would still have to say they enjoyed it. So, yeah. I even saw Nobble saying, he's a load of shit, this. And he's like the nicest person. He's Mr. Positive, isn't he? And he was basically saying, well, because even then he was silver lining. He was over, oh, you got to do it because you get the gear, good gear. I haven't done it. Bollocks to it. Did I find a guild? Not really. I rejoined a guild I used to be in, just as a social instead. So no. I haven't done it. No, the only Uldir I've done, nearly didn't do any this week. So I was streaming on Sunday, and there's a group of socials that we do Mythic Dungeons. Not terribly successful. Well, I suppose we're all right to say we're all shit, like in terms of gear and stuff like that. But like one of them decided to organise a pug raid. I thought we were just going to try and join a pug raid, but he organised it, having no idea about any of the bosses. So I was the only one there who knew anything about any of the bosses, and we weren't on voice comms with most of the raid, so it's quite difficult. But I've only killed 5 bosses on normal. I've got more progress in the beta than I have in live. In old here. Oh dear. I have nothing against short. There's nothing to do with the height. The height is, in fact, the height for gnomes is an advantage. It means I am less likely to have to look at them. There's less of them that I have to suffer. That's a good thing. That's the only good thing about gnomes, the fact that they're small and relatively insignificant. It's everything else about them. Warfronts a missed opportunity. Well, this is an even better one, Jordan, though. Why isn't there a blue paste saying why there isn't a PvP option? Technically, there was. During the beta, it was asked, because when they said with islands, all right, islands, but, do a PvP version as well, and people were saying, well, Warfronts, surely it should be a PvP option for that. And Blizzard, I can't remember exactly what they said, but they did reply to it. They haven't replied to it recently, of course. But I noted on the blue track on MMO Champion today, someone posting our blue posts extinct now. The fact that it got a reply was making me think, oh, probably not then. But it was a community manager replying to it, not a dev. The thing is, the devs have notably, and I did a video about this ages ago, didn't I? They have been notably quieter on forums and stuff like that. Ian Hazakostas himself, and remember, he's the one who instructs the devs. So if there is an actual, which there is, if there's an actual directive not to say they're not banned from speaking publicly, but they're told to not do it so much. It would come from him. And he's the one who on a Q&A said, we'd rather you posted feedback on Twitter. Oh, yes, I'm sure you would. That is basically what someone who doesn't want any criticism would say. Because on Twitter, you've got a limit. You can't possibly communicate anything complex. So you can only say little things. And not many people will see it. I mean, not that many people see it on a forum, quite frankly, but far more than on Twitter. There are some people, I'm sure, who follow Warcraft devs and Warcraft Twitter and see what people are posting there. But I don't think that many. So... But in terms of Warfronts being a huge missed opportunity, I'm not sure. See, I don't see the only thing good I can think about Warfronts, and it's just a guess, is that the technology is being used to test for something that might be awesome later on. Warfronts, you got to remember what they said about Warfronts. They said, oh, do you remember Warcraft, the RTS? Wouldn't it be cool if you could be one of the little guys? No. They were called peasants. Why would I want to be a peasant? So the whole concept of Warfronts was, and then when I tried it out, I thought, I was a peasant. I was going to get more wood. Oh, we need more wood. I'll go and get more wood, shall I? Load of rubbish. Absolute rubbish it was. So I haven't done it in live. I've, I'm not saying I definitely won't, but I've no desire to. You think it's been a terrible expansion for casual so far? See, I find it difficult to judge because it's the first expansion where I've been casual. But I have to say, I'm okay with it as a casual. I can't compare it as a casual with any other expansion. But there was a time when I thought to myself, if I'm not going to raid, I'd rather not play the game at all. Now, the fact that I am playing the game still means that I am enjoying the content as a casual. And I'm proper casual. Like, remember, when it was going to come out, I wanted ideally to get into a guild where I could do heroic raiding, but not progress raiding. Obviously, that was very unicorn thinking. There was, I couldn't find anywhere. Fine. Okay. So I sort of resigned to the fact that maybe I'll just end up being a bloody LFR raider. But, I've done a little bit of normal. I'm okay with what I've been doing. I've done a bit of Mythic dungeons. I've been doing a bit of normal raiding. Be nice to do more, but I don't want to be on the game all weekend trying to find a group. I'm not doing that. I want to do other things. I've got other things to do. So I'm fine. I quite enjoy it as a casual player, but I can't compare the casual experience from previous expansions. As bad as Warfronts are, what annoys you most is how they've deprecated dungeons this early into the expansion. What you mean, like normal and heroic? The thing that gets me in terms of some of the content, I would really like to ask, why is this there? One of them is, for a start, I don't really see why Mythic dungeons were there in the first week. I didn't get that. What was the need for that? But the second thing, I'm not saying, no, maybe some people like that. But the second thing is, I've talked about this before. So reputation vendors. So at Honoured, you can get a 320 cloak or whatever it was. That's nice because, you're going to be honoured with at least a couple of reps by the time you get to level cap. Actually, I had someone post a reply to a video saying they were revered with 3 factions when they hit level cap. And I was thinking, well, far be it from me to call that into question, but I'm thinking to myself, I didn't do any dungeons while I was leveling. I only did main quest lines and the war campaign. That's all I did. Didn't do side quests or anything like that. I did main quest lines, so I had all the quest lines completed and the war campaign completed when I hit level cap. I was straight into being able to unlock the level cap stuff. And I wasn't revered with anyone. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, a human would have a bit more, but I'm not quite sure how you get revered with 3 whilst leveling. But anyway, doesn't matter about that. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So, but on the reputation, so 320 for Honoured. At Revered, you can get a 335 piece. But my thing was, by the time you're Revered, surely you've got no use for 335 pieces. And then some people said, well, when they got to Revered, they did have a use for it. I thought, oh, okay. I certainly didn't. I don't know. Maybe I was lucky. But I had no use for any 3. I didn't have anything. 340 was the lowest item level thing I had when mind you, I only got Revered this week, first time. But that's a curious thing. I'm thinking, what's the point of that? Seriously, what is the point of that? But the fact that you can get such high item level gear so early on, the idea that I could craft 2 pieces of 355 gear before normal even opened, and that you could have, there were people with item level above 355 before all gear opened. People that have, been doing everything. I thought that's a bit mad. That is a bit mad. So again, they seem to get better at it, but the too much too soon just always seems to be there. There certainly isn't real motivation for you to log in much nowadays. To be fair, there isn't for me, because I don't want to do any islands. I will only do islands if it's people I know. I am not doing any more pug islands. I did one. I'm not doing them. Don't care. I'm not doing them. Don't care what my neck item level is. It's not worth it. I don't want to do Warfronts. I don't want to do PvP. I saw a tweet earlier from someone tweeting Asmongold, and he retweeted it, and it was saying, "Oh, isn't it nice how you see so many PvE players doing PvP with the old war mode rewards and stuff like that, and the conquest rewards?" And I thought, no, that's not nice. That's actually really bad, because if you're incentivizing it, I think it's absolutely right that you incentivize the rewards in PvP for people who want to do PvP, so they feel it's worth it. But when that incentive becomes a compulsion, which is a real problem Blizzard have, then it's not nice. Because if I'd have been a Mythic Raider, I was thinking about it yesterday, if I'd have been a Mythic Raider, not only would I have had to have been all day, every day doing dungeons and world quests when it first came out, but I would have been off work at least, thank God. I'd have since this week, I'd have been having to ram as many Mythic Plus dungeons as I could, be doing all the raids, and doing PvP. I would have had to have done PvP, because the rewards are really tasty. Somehow, I don't know how, I do not know why, but I don't understand it. But you've got a number of simple ideas to improve Battlefronts, Warfronts. Just waiting to play them yourself so you can make a forum post. You had a mate who is new to the game. He entered a Warfronts and said that he could pick a shirt where the wood collector guy. Oh, okay. There's so much more content and gear available to casuals. There is. It diminishes the drive to raid Mythic. I think there are a few things. I don't know. So it depends what your motivation is to do Mythic. I don't think there's that many people motivated to do Mythic because of the gear. So there is that. However, I think it is the case that a lot of Mythic Raiders might, well, I know at least one Asmongold, because he said as much, didn't he? Not particularly appreciate the fact that your gear is not actually significantly better for doing Mythic raiding than doing, say, Heroic raiding and Mythic Plus dungeons, or just Mythic Plus dungeons, or anything like that. Because it's not like you have to push, because you could argue, okay, if you're really pushing Mythic Plus dungeons like proper hard, then that's difficult. But you don't have to push it that hard, really. The reputation bonus humans game would make them require almost 2k less reputation to reach revered. Yeah, but I wasn't even on like 10k honoured, is my point. Dark Moon bonus stacks. Was Dark Moon out at the time? I know it's been out since. I am not lucky. You're beyond 335, not revered for anyone. Well, there you go then. What's a good item level for Mythic Naught? Depends. If you've got a group. See, the thing is, like in the first week, I could have done Mythic Dungeons because people were asking, and I was thinking, oh, I'm not really good enough geared. I'm only like at 300. So I waited till the next week, and next week I had about 325. So I thought, well, that's the gear you get from Heroic, so that's great. And it was actually straightforward. So if you know what you're doing and you're in a group who knows what they're doing and communicating, you could easily do it with 300 item level, I'm sure. Absolutely. In fact, I think Raiders have done it with less than that. So you don't need that much gear. But again, it's like anything, isn't it? If people in your group are not that good, or you're not that coordinated, then more gear gives you that much larger margin for error. Are you late, Rob? Only a little bit. We've only been on for 18 minutes. Welcome to the life of a PvPer. Who's that? Not me, I hope. I'm not PvPing. Refuse. I don't have to. I'm not a raider. Therefore, there's no content that I should feel compelled to do. And I'm not going to feel compelled to do it either. Not doing it. Putting my feet down. You feel BfA has problems story-wise? Well, it's interesting. It does, because they've got little things wrong. Okay, they've messed things up. But that being said, I think the storyline is one of the best features of BfA. And that's not like me saying BfA is so bad that, you know, the storyline ends up being quite a good thing. I mean, genuinely, I cannot remember an expansion ever where people have been talking so excitedly about the storyline. I can't remember a single expansion where people have been this excited about a story. So that, I think, is really good. The fact that they have made some boo-boos with it, notwithstanding. Let's see where we're up to. Am I catching up? I might be catching up. You think it sucks that Horde will get access to some loot early and get a jump on that because of Warfronts? For the sort of people who are going to need the gear, I don't see it as that big an issue, really. Besides, everyone's Horde anyway, let's face facts now. If you're raiding your Horde. It's sad but true. Applecrow. Feel like they should have switched islands and Warfronts. Have the Warfronts have the PvP element. It might have been better. I mean, as much as I do not like PvP in World of Warcraft, it's not like none of the PvP can be any good. In fact, ironically, my issue with PvP in World of Warcraft is you don't get large-scale battles. Now, Warfronts, if they were PvP, or at least if there was a PvP element or choice, might have allowed for that. I only say might. I still don't think it would have been as good as in proper MMOs that have done it properly. But yes, I think that had Warfronts had a PvP mode, it might have allowed for large-scale battles to take place, in which case I might have been interested. Possibly not on my Paladin. Maybe more on the Hunter. 290 was definitely doable, but bad time investment since you could just buy some BOEs and get over 300. Oh, absolutely, Parasemic. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I did when I got to level cap. Leveled up my blacksmithing, made myself a load of 300 gear. Well, slightly out, because sometimes it Warforges and stuff. Bargain. Some of the bosses are very difficult if you can't burn them quickly. With a 300 item level group, you wiped a couple of bosses, but still eventually cleared all 10. Yeah. I mean, I know that, obviously, raiders I know were doing it around about 300-ish. So you could absolutely do it there. But again, you sort of have to know what you're doing and have to talk to each other. Hiya, Rob. Do I think raids are now catering to a class than all classes? For example, BM Hunter. Well, I mean, there's two things there. See, BM Hunter isn't a class. It's a spec within a class. There are certain class role combinations that are suffering at the moment. Whether it be suffering in Mythic Plus or whether it be suffering in raiding. And here is a real issue for serious raiders. To be a serious raider, you need to be effective in raiding, Mythic raiding, and Mythic Plus dungeons, because you cannot ignore the gear from Mythic Plus dungeons. So if you are playing a class role combination that is not effective, I mean, I suppose you could argue some people are okay changing roles for Mythic Plus or for raids or whatever, however you want to look at it. All right, that's fine. But for some people who don't, they shouldn't have to. You pick a role and you pick a class, and that you should be okay with that. If you've got multiple specs for that class role combination, all right, you should familiarise yourself with those two. So feral druids apparently are like throwing themselves off cliffs at the moment. They're not having a very good time of it. Even my own spec, Ret Paladin, I'm at my casual level, I'm all right in Mythic Plus dungeons. But at a much higher level, they're not great because the AoE is pants. It was, and they know what to do to fix it as well. It's just because the solution they could put in place isn't ideal. But it's better than we have now, so I don't know why they didn't just do it, but they haven't. So yeah, that's a bit of an issue. I think it's worse for ferals though. And there's a few others as well. And that is the problem. The concept of bring the player, not the class, was kicked into the long grass years ago. They even say so. They don't even pretend to do it. It was a previous, game director that said that. Since then, we've had two more that don't like it. Everyone in your Mythic Raid guild is doing arena. Of course they are. Exactly, of course they are. Because it's really good rewards from doing PvP. And the more high profile the PvP, the better. It's absolutely mad what some people are getting. If you have a PvP option on the Warfronts, you get around all the wait time for factions as well. really ties in with the theme they've been pushing. Well, yeah, well, there is that as well. I still say the theme, they've been pushing this PvP theme, but it's still, I still don't consider that the theme of the expansion. But it would, yeah. I don't know why they haven't done a PvP option for Warfronts. I don't understand at all. I don't. But Warfronts, for me, Warfronts and Islands have been poor. And I say that from what they were like in beta. I haven't changed my mind since it's gone live. All that's happened since it's gone live is it's reinforced my views, because there's so many other people that didn't have an opinion till it went live now have the opinion that they're not actually very good. It's just like the thing with BfA is, obviously I still enjoy the game. I'm still paying for it. I'm paying for 3 accounts and I'm still playing it. And I like playing it. But it's still disappointing. It's a disappointment. But it was a disappointment before it ever went live for me. Mythic dungeons were in first week because they know Island Expedition Warfronts are terrible. Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, what worried me about Islands was it was the new feature for BfA. It was the new thing. And yet, quite early on in the alpha process, but this was still several months after BlizzCon, they actually were saying they don't really know what they're doing with Islands. They couldn't even be sure that they'd be able to keep them relevant throughout the expansion. Now, if you think that the big new feature in Legion was, well, you had 2 really. You had scaling content, but the big one for endgame, the big one was Mythic Plus Dungeons. Now, you look at how awesome Mythic Plus Dungeons have been and how successful they were. For them not to be able to follow that up with anything like that, because it's not just that Islands aren't as good as Mythic Plus Dungeons. They're not really as good as LFR. That's how awful they are for me, anyway. That's appalling. That's just shocking. And I don't like to think that that's a suggestion that maybe they just don't have ideas. But it's a bit of a worry when, you know, they can't come up with a good piece of original content for an expansion. An expansion! Anyone done Vector's Heroic with a 10-man? Why would you do it with 10? Ooh. Vector's was horrible during the beta. In fact, when I did it in that pug on Sunday, I got up to it and I thought, ooh. And we did wipe once, but actually we killed it the second time. It was that easy on normal. How many months until you can unlock Zandalar Kulturan? I don't know. I don't know whether Blizzard know or not. See, I think allied races, because it's an interesting point you say that. Why should you say stay subbed in the meantime? Because you're sort of suggesting what is my idea with allied races. It's something they can pull out of the bag when the subs slip a bit. It wouldn't surprise me if they don't have a release date aim in mind. If they're just thinking to themselves, we'll just wait for the subs to drop, then we'll bring them out. I wouldn't be at all surprised if that's what they're doing with them. Because it will absolutely guarantee a load of new resubs, shall we say, when they do bring them out. So I certainly wouldn't, if I were them, bring it out early on while the subs are still buoyant. I would wait till they dip. Now, when that is, I don't know. But it might be that they have, it might be that they're for patch 8.1 or something like that. They might already have decided when they want to bring them out. I don't know. But I wouldn't. If I were them, I would bring them out reactively. The solution for Rets is somewhat similar to them buffing the mastery of your arms where it's 200%. Yes. Well, you talk about 200% buffs to things. I mean, you should see what they've been doing to the Azerite traits. That's a complete shit show as well. See, that's one of those where it slips under the radar a lot because very few people will actually be paying attention to the Azerite trait stuff. But they've been giving those massive buffs and massive nerfs. When you have to buff something by several 100%, How do you get something that wrong in the first place? You can understand that when you're coming up with your ballpark figures, that, you know, then you tweak them. How do you get something so wrong that you either have to buff it or nerf it by several 100%? That's insane. I don't even know what that is. That's like rolling dice to see how much damage something should do. I cannot think of a system in BfA that is actually just working. Shocking. In fact, the only reason that my next discussion video is going to be my top 5 features of BfA, which I'm perfectly happy to do, there are several features that I'm very happy with, is only because if I were to do what I think are the top 5 worst things about BfA, everyone's going to do what they did to us and go, oh, why are you playing it if you don't like the game? Because it's going to be proper scathing. You think Alliance High Elves will likely come out when subs slip? No, they'll never do that. They're not going to do that. Doesn't serve any purpose, Alliance High Elves. Since when have new game modes constituted what was original content? Mythic Plus is new content. Just because it was based on dungeons, the actual content was new. The idea of it, if it had just been, it scales up with each level, then that wouldn't have been, I would agree that wouldn't have been very new. But the affixes and stuff like that, I think makes it a very different experience. I class Mythic Plus as a new content. You have Magar and you're about halfway to Dark Eye. See, the Dark Eye, if I was Alliance, I would absolutely be putting some effort into unlocking the Dark Eye and getting those. I'm not putting any effort in. I don't want Magar Orcs. They're just Orcs. Brown Orcs, oh, well done. Okay. I quite like Green Orcs, quite frankly. I mean, as a... Well, I was going to say a former Warhammer player. Getting back into it now. I like my Orcs green anyway. Don't really want Brown Orcs. Low elves, yes, very good. Aren't low elves just names with pointy ears? Leveling is working just fine. Is it, though? Is it working just fine? What am I missing? Hold on, what have I missed? Did I say something? Oh, you don't... Islands were necessary. Well, islands weren't necessary. I can see an advantage in islands because the thing is they needed something to give you a big chunk of artifact power. Now in Legion, that big chunk of artifact power came from doing Mythic Plus dungeons, but the problem with that is you felt compelled to run too many Mythic Plus dungeons. So it could be argued that Island serves the purpose of taking that away from Mythic Plus dungeons so you don't feel that compulsion. Because Mythic Plus brings other things as well. You know, gear. And if you want to keep running it for the gear, that's fine. But if you don't, it's a bit crap to want to run Mythic Plus just for AP. I mean, the problem is that the concept of artifact power in itself, I think I understand why they have it, but I don't think it works, and I don't think it's really popular. Because like committed players of the game don't need artifact power. They don't need that to keep us subbed, because we're going to stay subbed anyway. It's there to dangle the carrot for people who might want to unsub by saying, oh yeah, unsub for a month, no problem, but when you come back, you'll be way behind everyone else. But I don't think it even has that effect, because the sort of people that are going to sub for a month or two and then unsub for a month or two, I don't think they care that much. I think the catch-up is enough that they don't care. So I don't think it works. New raids and dungeons is new content on the same platform. It's new content, but it's not original content, because even though you've got new bosses, it's the same old mechanics. Like raids, when you've done enough raid tiers, you know, you look at certain bosses, you go, oh, that's from this boss, that from that. You don't really see any much new. The only new thing I can think of, for example, in Legion was the Illidan phase on Kil'jaeden. That was new. That was a genuinely new mechanic. It wasn't really anything else. Everything else was just what it was. It's stuff from before. Well, you say what else can they take from Diablo 3? In fact, I wish they would take good ideas from other games more often, but they should absolutely take good ideas from their own games. The question is that sometimes they're not always good ideas. They're just doing it. But I don't really see... I mean, you know, the fact that it's a new setting is nice for dungeons and raids, but it's not really new. It's the same, you know. That's another reason why I don't necessarily... I sort of miss doing Mythic raiding, but at the same time, not desperately, because I wouldn't be seeing anything really new anyway. I mean, there's that netball game you have to play with Gahoon, but that's gimmick. I don't like gimmick stuff. Maiden of Virtue was pretty new, no? No, it wasn't. Well, it was like playing Guitar Hero, but it wasn't new, because what were the mechanics? Soak one thing, dodge another thing. That's been done in loads of... You had that in Vanilla. You had things like that in AQ40. You know, just cosmetically it was different, but it was still collect these things, dodge these other things. That's not a new mechanic. Blizz just announced for a few weeks in beta, the chest dropped more than one item. The intended design behavior of the chest is to award one weekly high-end item. Now, that's nonsense. Because, let me have a look at this. They said... Oh my god, you're right. What the hell? They even talked about it dropping, because they even said, right, they're lying if this is the case. I mean, they said that it would guarantee to drop you one, there'd be a decent chance of it dropping two, and a rare chance of it dropping three. They talked about it. It wasn't just that that's what was happening. They talked about it. It wasn't something to be cleared up back in beta. They've changed their mind on that, and they're trying to... Why do they do these things? Because things that they say are recorded. All right, okay, never mind. Doesn't matter. I mean, it suits me. One item's fine. I don't see the need to have more than one item from Mythic Plus caches, quite frankly. Actually, that's a lie. Because you want one item to be an Azerite piece, don't you? And you want something that's not an Azerite piece. Actually, no, I'm lying. I don't like just one item. Someone just forgot. Well, it might be that someone just forgot, because this is another problem I have with World of Warcraft design. It doesn't seem terribly well coordinated. So I think it is well, I know it's perfectly possible that sometimes a particular developer thinks that this is a thing in the game, and just no one's told them that they changed their mind a couple of months ago. So it has actually perfectly possible that has happened again, that it was decided some time ago that wasn't going to happen, but maybe some developers weren't brought up to speed with it, because the coordination amongst teams is shocking. Absolutely shocking. I suppose that's another reason they don't want developers talking on forums, because they're very likely to say something that's not quite right. Not because they're stupid, but because they're not informed. You think artifact power is another method to hinder split pushing because it discourages leveling out for competitive raiding? No, I don't think that's... I think it does discourage outs for raiding, certainly. But I don't think that's an intention of it. I mean, they don't have to do anything to discourage split raiding now. They've done it. Only the top guilds will get any benefit from split raiding now. I mean, this is the irony, isn't it? I've gone casual now. I'm a social in a Mythic raiding guild. In Legion, I'd have been able to go into the normal and heroic runs because I'd be there to pass them gear. Whereas if I go in now, I'm technically risking taking gear away. Because if I get anything, then I suppose, you know, if you've got 5N plus 1, then you're okay. If you're the plus 1, you've got a chance of providing some more gear. But they don't gain from taking a social anymore. And sometimes they lose. Statistically, you might end up with less gear for the raiders by taking a social now. That was what was so hilarious about some of the people thinking personal loot would be a good idea because they were annoyed at loot going to other people. Well, those sorts of people are not likely to be taking the long-term runs anymore. They are either trying to kill off the game, no. And I don't think they're trying to reduce the player base either. If they have a bad idea, I think it's a genuinely bad idea, that's all. I think, because here's what I think, this is an opinion. I don't know the inner workings of it all. This is purely an opinion. I think that Blizzard, like a lot of games companies, is a company where you join it potentially for being good at a thing. And you get this in a lot of industries. Like Ian Hazakostas, he was a lawyer, wasn't he, or something? He was legally trained. And he joined, and he eventually became an encounter designer. And he was a well-respected encounter designer. He was good at it. And then he became the assistant game director. Did he become the assistant game director because he's really good at organising people? No, because he's shown that he's not good at organising teams. And then he became game director. Again, why? He's got these positions by being good at the previous position. And you get this in a lot of industries. Like, you get it in sport, don't you? How many times do you see people talking about someone like Ryan Giggs? Oh, they should make him manager of Man United. Why? Because he was a good player. Does that mean he's going to be a good coach? Not necessarily. So you sometimes get promotion in the company for being good at your job. But the thing is, the promotion might mean doing a job that requires totally different skills. And you might not be any good at it. And I just think, as someone who's managing it, I just think I think it's all over his head. I don't think he can. And to be fair to him, the infrastructure wasn't there when he took over either. So the previous guy wasn't very good at it either. I just think there isn't that infrastructure, that leadership structure within the game design. And because over the last few years, the development team they've said themselves, the development team has massively exploded in size. It became huge. If you don't have the layers of management in there to manage it, and I'm certainly not in favour of lots of middle managers, by the way, I hate that idea, but there needs to be some management of those teams, and there isn't. They're all making it up as they go along. They're like me with this channel, but it's fine for me because I don't have to put out something that, 6 million people want to play. Where are we up to? Sorry, I'm missing stuff. What gnome modelled allied race I didn't put in the game? Yeah, leper gnomes for the Horde. Do that. Serves them right. I shouldn't say that because I'm Horde now, but, Blizzard is doing a bad job at communicating changes to players. They're doing a deliberately bad job at communicating to players. This is true, but that's deliberate. It's not that they're bad at it. They are deliberately not communicating to us because there's this real them and us situation between Blizzard and the player base that emerged during Warlords of Draenor, I think it's fair to say. And they view us as arseholes, basically. Because obviously some criticism goes too far. There's proper trolls or people who are just so passionate about it, they don't realise that they're talking to a human being with feelings. And sometimes people go too far. But the problem is that Blizzard tend to fixate on that. But on the other hand, on the other side, not only do you have people who troll them or just get too excitable, you have people on the other side who keep telling them how great they are and to ignore everyone else. Well, who are you going to listen? If you're a bit of a special snowflake, bit of a bruised ego, are you going to listen to the people telling you you're doing a shit job? Or are you going to listen to the people who are telling you you're doing a great job? So I think they have a bit of a warped reality when it comes to the player base. And because they never ask the player base, because the only way you can ask the entire player base about anything is, I've said it before and I'll say it again, in-game surveys. They don't do that. So they get to make up whatever they like. They get to say, oh, we've been reading the forums and we see that lots of people actually like this content. Not really a good sample, is it? You know. To you, Ian comes across as uncaring, out of touch. I think he's out of touch. I wouldn't say uncaring. I don't believe that. I don't believe that of any of them. Apart from anything else, remember those live Q&As, which he predominantly does, were started by him and Law. It might have been a team effort there. So I do think he cares. I don't get that impression. I do think he's also out of touch, though, because he makes no attempt to be in touch. Like, take me as a teacher. In my classes, I don't just do my lesson, blah, blah. I frequently ask my students, are you understanding this? Is there any other way that we could do this that'd be better for you or anything like that? I don't go in there assuming just because I've been teaching for God knows how many years and because I get good results every year that I'm the dog's bollocks. You know, if there's something that a student would rather, you know, if they've got any suggestions, I always tell them, just ask me. And if it's a stupid idea, I'll tell them it's a stupid idea and get on with it. But I'll always listen. And I frequently ask, just like I do on this channel. They don't do that, Blizzard. They don't ever want our opinions. They've even said as much. There's been several times during the alpha and beta process where what they've said is, oh yeah, we're totally open to criticism, but we want you to tell us how our idea can be implemented better. So and they've said this, they've actually said this, we don't want you to tell us that the idea shouldn't be implemented at all. So that means straight away that this dog turd of an idea is going to be in, and you've just got to advise them how best to polish it. That's basically what they're asking for. They're not interested in criticism. Not at all. Ian comes off as a jackass. Well, I think, to be fair, whether anyone comes off as a jackass or not is always down to interpretation. It's always subjective. You know, I think there's probably plenty of people in various public fields where some people loathe them and some people love them, and it's just, you know. But I do think he cares, though. I think he genuinely does want to make a good game. I think the lack of coordination amongst teams is the biggest problem. I think the World of Warcraft development team is too big to be able to go on a wing and a prayer, and that's how it seems to work. And he basically admitted as much, didn't he, during Tomb of Sargeras. But I was hoping that some things would be improved, but I see no evidence of it. And I see no reason why Battle for Azeroth shouldn't have been ready in time, given the resources that they have. I can only... I know that they've been working very inefficiently. Super inefficiently. I mean, think about the amount of resource development that went on to this idea of theirs of putting more things on the GCD. They just thought, oh, we're going to put all these things on the GCD and that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. And because of that, instead of just getting rid of it, they should have just thought to themselves, oh, we ain't got time for this. Let's just shelve that idea, come back to it later. Because they used to do things like that, Blizzard. They used to do that. If an idea wasn't going to work, rather than smash it in, they used to go, look, we'll come back to it later. It's not ready. They don't. They've still left it in, and they spent a lot of resources, like developer time, trying to sort it out. That meant other things got put off, didn't it? And that's just one example. You know, the same thing happened with class design in general. At the start of the alpha, it was, yeah, there's only about 4 or 5 specs need any changes. Everything else is fine. Oh, yeah, you've lost all your artifact abilities, but it's fine because you were designed to work without them anyway. A few weeks later, it was, oh, yeah, we've come to the realization that basically no spec works without their artifact abilities. We're going to have to do quite a bit of redesigning. Now, I know that, you know, some still didn't get much of a redesign, but they all basically needed it. You're quite sure there's a few people in the community that have no idea what they're talking about? Well, of course. I mean, everyone has an opinion. Not necessarily everyone thinks about their opinion. You'd imagine how difficult it would be to tell which feedback is worth taking. If you're reading forums or Twitter, absolutely, I agree. But they have 2 sources of effective feedback. One of which they use, which is that they do directly talk to some of the key, well, the most senior theory crafters in the game. They do talk to the class development team. They don't always listen to the theory crafters, but they do listen. Well, they don't act on it, should I say, but they do listen to them. But the other source they have, they could easily ask, how much do you enjoy this piece of content, 1 to 10, whatever, as an in-game survey. Obviously, they can't do a survey where you're going to put sentence answers in because no one can read through that lot. But I would do in-game surveys, just 1 to 10 things, and to encourage people to do them, offer a reward. Like, you know, you know how you get a bag of goodies for, you know, like being a tank or a healer or something when you're short of them in queues. Something like that, but better than the in-game one. Something that at the very least will give you a few flasks and potions, might give you a pet, small chance of a mount. And these surveys will come out every month. You know, every month, survey is going to come out for active subscribers. Fill it in, get a goodie bag. Then they'd have access to a huge amount of data, which is not based on, oh, there's loads of people doing islands, they must be really popular. No, there's loads of people doing islands, they must be really compulsive. You could actually find out, do you actually enjoy doing the islands? No, not really. You know, it could actually ask them, do you do the islands because you find them fun? Or do you do the islands because you want the artifact power? Ask people. But they don't want to, because they don't want to be told that their ideas are not good. Their egos can't handle it. Or some of them. And this, I'm not trying to tar them all with the same brush. It only needs 3 or 4 people like that in the company. Because generally, it's my experience that people, that people with those sort of egos tend to be the ones who rise to the top anyway. Because it's the only way they can soothe their ego to get promotion. So they're constantly pushing for it. And some of them inevitably get it. So it only needs 3 or 4 in a large team that get a disproportionate amount of influence and therefore make the rest look bad. Inefficient is not the word. For example, when they tried to push a new Prot Warrior gameplay change, the community said it won't work like that. They didn't listen, pushed it and scrapped it at the end. Well, that's exactly, yeah, they've done that with so many specs. I mean, Holy Wrath is in fact, Holy Wrath and Greater Blessing of Might were the good ones for Ret in Legion. Greater Blessing of Might, 9 months beforehand, told them how shit it was. I even upset a couple of devs by telling them how bad it was. And they went through it, went live, and it was shelved a couple of months later. And then Holy Wrath, they kept it in all expansion, but no sod used it. You know, we kept trying to tell them no one's going to use this. They went, oh, it's fine. You just choose another. You know, it was like, this is no good. Oh, great. Choose another talent. Yeah, everyone will. And everyone did. And it's not like we were telling them a few weeks before the launch when there wasn't enough time to do anything about it. They were committed. We were telling them early alpha when there was loads of times to change it. So that does annoy me when they persist, they stick to their guns on a... But whenever that happens, you know, I can almost guarantee whenever it happens that they stick to their guns on a really stupid idea and then bin it later on, it always seems to be the brainchild of one of those small number of influential people who won't see sense. Because there's plenty of developers who are sensible and absolutely accept criticism. I know that for a fact. But there's just a few who won't face up to it. And it's disappointing. Now that we have Azeroth and decent gear, how do you think the classes are playing this expansion? Well, I don't know. I'm going to look through, this weekend, I'm going to look through some of the logs and see how things have been going. Not just in overall damage, of course, I'm not that silly. But in terms of effective damage and also inclusion. Because that'll be quite telling. You know, mythic guilds that have killed a few mythic bosses will generally be taking the classes and specs that are going to do the best, you know, utility-wise. So by seeing how many logs there are for each class and spec for certain fights, that can be quite telling as well. Do I think people are overreacting about being slowed down? Yes and no. I think there are people blowing it out of proportion. That being said, we are noticeably slower. And if you don't like being slowed down, then it's not really blown it out of proportion to complain about it. I mean, you can overestimate how much you're being slowed down, but we are being slowed down. That is it. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was like, I don't find myself every few minutes when I'm in Mythic Plus Dungeons or something going, oh, bloody hell, how slow. I'm waiting ages for this Crusader Strike to come off cooldown. Every now and then I get some downtime, but I used to get downtime in Legion as well. I get a bit more. I notice it, but I don't get upset about it. They won't change something that sucks, but then they always end up changing something everyone uses and making a mess of it. Have you got any particular ideas in mind there, Grim? I mean, some things they've done. Some things they've improved, I think. The auction house was a big improvement. You know, not stopping, but dissuading people from posting 1,000 stacks of one. That made a massive improvement to auction houses. It was actually usable now. So that was good. The fact that they've done an auction house mount, I thought was nice. Expensive, but, you know, it's nice. I think they've done some good things. The fact that they changed, because there was going to be the thing about can't trade Azeroth gear, and then they changed that. See, the thing is, that does show that they are willing to change. If the community says something, and if it doesn't directly go against one of their core principles, they are willing to change. It is always worth, never think to yourself, it's not worth saying anything because Blizzard won't listen anyway. If the demand for something is not directly against one of their core philosophies, they are actually quite receptive. The disappointing thing is that they have these core philosophies. I think, you know, having a general philosophy is fine because it allows you to structure the rest of your design onto it. But if it goes against what players want, then, you know, should ultimately be playing a game that the players want to play. But I'm going to have a look at the tweet or anything else now, actually. Hold on, where is it? Warcraft devs, where have they gone? Oh my god. Oh no, they haven't said anything else recently. Never mind. Can't think of something specific. Recall some talent's been nerfed rather than buffing or replacing their alternatives. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, I mean, that can be one way of doing it as long as you sort of balance the rest of the class around it. I mean, what can be disappointing is when it's more of a spec thing, particularly for Legion. It's possibly less of an issue in BfA. Like, I remember the start of Legion with mages. Let me think. Let me get this right now. So fire mages, I think, were the strongest spec for mages. And they were way stronger, I think, than Frost and Arcane, if I'm getting this right. And I remember there was a Q&A where Ian Hazacostas talked specifically about mages. And he said, he was trying to make a general point, but he did use the example of mages. And he said, obviously, we're going to try and balance the specs. But if one spec for a class is ahead of the others, then we'll make sure that it's always the strongest spec, but not by a lot. That was the aim, he said. We want it to be not way better, but because it started off as the strongest and they understood that people would invest in the weapons, they'd make sure it stayed the strongest. But it didn't, did it? It didn't. So mages, you know, were all over the place. I felt very bad, actually. I don't normally feel sympathy for pure DPS classes because at the end of the day, they get 3 specs to play. And on any given fight, one of them is bound to be good. But Legion really screwed them over. The fact that the artifact power had to go on individual weapons and not them as a player. I mean, at least they've improved that. I mean, again, give them their due. They've changed that now. They still have artifact power, which, you know, I wish they didn't. But at least it goes on the player now and not the individual piece of gear. So it doesn't stop you changing spec as much. I mean, it's not ideal because you've still got those Azerite armor locks. But I suppose if you permanently change spec, you could just, it wouldn't cost much to reset the traits on them. So example you can think of that includes that is old demo Warlock. Didn't he straight up say he would rather people not play that spec? I don't. Did he? He wouldn't have said that, would he? He might have said that. I don't remember that though. I always think of demo Warlock. They should have just made it a tank spec. Make it a tank spec. Have a pet tanking class. That'd be fun. Mind you, I've often thought that ever since the Illidan fight, where you used to have a Warlock tank when he went demon form, didn't you? You're a Mythic raiding mage. Your main since 12 years. Well, you remember what you said? By Nighthold, Frost was superior to fire. And Emerald Nightmares the other way around. Yeah. But it's the fact that he said that effectively fire will always be the top, even though we'll try and keep them. We want to get them close, just because people have put a lot of work into the fire weapon, and they don't want to suddenly have to change that around. That they did. You dislike how the devs say we want an eye level upgrade to be an upgrade without confusion, and then create Azerite traits that vary from. Well, exactly. This is the thing. The Azerite traits are basically unbalanceable. There's too many of them. Can't balance them. And that's why the amount of massive tuning that's been going on with them. They've been scaling them like one way, then the other, in this vain attempt to balance them all out, but there's too many. And it may just, and the traits are just dull. I don't know. I don't think that. I don't think I would say that. I mean, be careful what you wish for, because some of the data mined abilities during the beta that aren't in the game, at least not as yet, were interesting but not fun. In fact, they'd be annoying. I saw at least one for Ret that would be super annoying to actually have. I'd rather dull than frustrating. But there are some that actually have an effect that change a little bit the way you play. A bit like a set bonus would. I don't know, I don't necessarily... But an awful lot of people have said the dull. So it's certainly a perception there. I mean, again, it's quite subjective. But the bottom line is that, yeah, the idea of an item level upgrade being an upgrade for definite is out the window with Azerite traits. Completely out the window. Because it isn't even just what the traits are worth. It's not even just that. It's whether, if you get a higher item level piece of Azerite gear, maybe you can't unlock all the traits because your neck isn't high enough item level. Or high enough level, sorry. So there's that aspect to it as well. Can you even unlock all... Maybe you've got all the traits unlocked on what you're wearing. You get a super duper upgrade. Maybe you can only unlock the first trait. Which, okay, is generally one of the most important ones. But it's, you know, it might be just that. It might be an identical piece of gear with the same traits on it. But you still can't equip the highest item level piece because you can't unlock all the traits. You know, it's just... Oh, dear. It's just such a mess. Demo, the most often overhaul spec in the game. Well, to be fair, a couple of times it had an overhaul. It's because they were nicking stuff off it. You know, they nicked stuff for DKs, first of all, and then they nicked some more stuff for Demon Hunters. It's like, oh, bringing out a new class. Oh, they're quite like Warlocks. I need to nick some abilities off the Warlocks. Oh, dear. It took them until over half of Legion was over to balance the specs. Well, it took them until we didn't need artifact power anymore to balance the specs, you could argue. Because that's the point at which people could actually, you know, try and put some artifact power into other things. Someone was actually tweeting recently, you know, if artifacts power is so great, how come everyone loved it when they didn't have to grind it anymore? And I think that's true. I think people were sick of it. I was sick of it. But then again, to me, I'm not a good person to talk about that because, you know, I always said it's just really the raiding I wanted to do anyway. I don't like the side stuff, you know. And now all I'm doing is the side stuff. But as a casual, you'd rather have a small handful of traits that are fun and engage and also not have to grind AP just to have fun. Yeah, the idea of having to grind AP is... if it worked, I would understood why they're doing it. But I can't say it definitely doesn't work. But I don't believe it works for what it should be doing. I don't believe it actually does its job. You understand the need for generalised traits, but feels bad when the spec unique Azeroth traits are complete garbage compared to general ones. Well, this is also true. Yes, there are some non-class specific ones that are outperforming the class ones, yes. Sometimes, yeah, I mean, sometimes that can be a good thing if you want to play multiple specs and you're balking at the idea of having to have multiple pieces of identical Azeroth gear to switch between. But yeah, I certainly get the sentiment that it is a bit funny when you have class-specific traits that are not as good as the general ones. But the other problem is, the issue I have at the moment is because they're tuning them. You can have people going onto a site and seeing which ones are supposedly the best traits. You should always sim yourself anyway. So I don't have that much sympathy for people who do that, but some people will. And, well, a lot of people will. And then it might change. But because you don't know it's changed, you don't think to go and check back the next week. So you might then think you've got your best trait and you haven't. The reforge cost goes up quick. Yeah, I imagine it does. Cap is 50k, is it? That's actually not as much as I thought it would be. I mean, it's still a lot. But maybe for some people they wouldn't consider it that much. Oh. It goes down quickly, does it? Okay. Do I think an old talent tree system on top of the current talents would work? I wouldn't have... No. The best thing about the old talent tree system was that you got something every time you leveled. So what I would like, instead of the old talent tree system, I've said this before, what I would like to see is, okay, you've got all your abilities. So let's say you're a DPS, so most of your abilities are just going to do damage. And then let's say you've got some other abilities that are utility abilities, but it has a cooldown. So let's say all these abilities, as soon as you get to the level where you acquire them, don't do that much damage, and they've got quite long cooldowns. And then what you can do is each level you get a point to spend, a skill point, talent point, whatever you want to call it, and you can spend that point on either increasing the damage of an ability or reducing the cooldown of an ability. With the not as much as you like, you know, with the aim that... Take mages then. Let's say Fireball, you can upgrade the damage on it 5 times. So spend 5 talent points. And you have the same thing for the other abilities, Fire Blast, Pyroblast, stuff like that, and Scorch and what have you. And it's up to you as you level up in which order, you know, where you decide to put those points first, basically. So that by the time you get to level cap, it's all done. You're the same as anyone else at that level with that class. But as you leveled up, you got a point to spend it on the ones you thought you want to prioritise. That would be better than nothing. At least you get something. I just want something when you get a level that goes, oh, I get some choice on how to improve my character. And it's, you know, if you did it like that, it'd be largely artificial because at level 120, you end up with the same thing. But at least while you're leveling, there's some variation. And you have determined what that variation is. Because I think that is a core principle of a role-playing game. I think a core principle of a role-playing game is when you level, you get to customise your character. I absolutely believe that you should get something when you ding to customise your character. And if you don't, I just think it's betraying the core values of a role-playing game. Do I like BfA so far? I like it enough to keep playing it. Yeah, I'm okay with it. There are things that I have probably more criticisms at this point of an expansion than I have for any other expansion that I've been there at the start of, which is all of them apart from Cataclysm. So, from that point of view, it's the most disappointing. But I still enjoy it. You know, the pros still outnumber the cons. It's just that there's quite a lot of cons. Or disappointments. Sometimes they're not always straight up cons. They're just not as good as it could be. It's a bit like a cake. A cake's still nice, but it's just that if you think to yourself, I could have baked a better cake, doesn't mean to say that the cake in front of you isn't nice. It's just, could have been better. The idea sounds like it would give players nice options for how they like their rotation while leveling. Well, yeah, there's that, exactly. But it's just giving them some choice, something to get them excited. Like ordinary, now, when you level, it's like, oh, I've got another level. Chalk one off. It's like, you know, you've spent an extra day in prison. It just means you're a little bit close to getting out again. That's what it feels like. Leveling in WoW feels like a prison sentence. And dinging is like you get let out. You get freedom. It's bad. It shouldn't be like that. How would I like it if Blizz made it so that Ret is constantly mounted? I would quite like it if we could mount out in the world and fight. That would be nice. That'd be alright. I'm not sure in a raid though. Because it's annoying enough when we get on our Divine Steed in a raid for other people as well as ourselves. But I like the idea of mounted combat, but not like they did in Lord of the Rings Online. Basically, Lord of the Rings Online, they introduced mounted combat, but it's awful. It's a terrible experience. It's like you're sliding around on ice. It's dreadful. No, mounted combat where you're mounted and you use your normal abilities, but you're just mounted so you go a bit faster. That I'd like. And you can still get knocked off your horse. I'm okay with that. But obviously, you know, not in the same way you do now. Otherwise, you'd never be mounted in combat. You know, but I'd quite like that. Is BfA the most buggy expansion at launch? I don't think so, no. I think you could argue it's more buggy than Legion, definitely. And WoD, I would agree with that. I wouldn't say it was more buggy than TBC. There were a lot of bugs in that when that launched. So I wouldn't say the most. Of recent times, yes, I think yes. In fact, it is. I don't think there's too much question about that. Level squishers. They've already talked about level squishers in terms of basically, do you know how, all right, back in January, when they did 7.3.5 and they implemented a lot of the architecture that was going to be needed for BfA and lots of things broke. But this sorted it out. Eventually it was all fine. And then when the pre-patch came out, some more things broke. But, you know, they got there, sorted it out. And then BfA launched. It was sort of okay. What they said is a lot of that was down to, you know, the stuff that they needed to put in place so that they could do the item level and stat squish. What they also said was if they were to do a level squish, it would blow all of the problems they had with the stat and item level squish out the park. It would be, you know, Armageddon for the game. That's not the word they used, but that was the impression they were given. They were saying to themselves, you think we had problems implementing the stat and item level squish. You wait and see what would happen if we tried to do a level squish. So I think that's probably off the table. Not because of a philosophy, but because they just don't think that technically it's a good thing to do. I think the increase in criticism is less because the expansion is bad. I wouldn't say the expansion is bad. You know, there's a difference between something being bad and just disappointed. Like when you're a company that pulls out a very, very high quality product. Like, put it this way. If I were to go to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant and he were to serve me something that'd be like the best meal that I could possibly make, that would be disappointing. But if I got that in a pub, I'd be quite happy with it. It's really to do with how good it is compared with your expectations. And the expectations are quite high for Blizzard games because they're a good studio. So when it doesn't meet those expectations, I mean, I would say the BfA launch is way better than most MMO launches or even most MMO expansion launches. It's just not up to the standards that we expect of Blizzard. But anyway, I'll carry on with what you were saying. It says, because the expansion is bad, more because it's good and you want it to be better. Well, sorry, I should have carried on reading. Yes, that's exactly it. Basically, yeah. Doing World Quest is like prison as well. Well, I don't think it's so much the World Quest, but the rep grind, yeah. It's the rep grind. Once you're exalted with every bugger, it's over. We're finished. It's like, you could almost imagine someone doing a meme based on the fall of Arthas, can't you? Is it over? Oh, yes, my son. No World Quest lasts forever. Oh, dear. But you see, casual play, I don't care. I only just got my first few factions to Revered this week. Don't give a shit. Don't care. I'll do them when I can be bothered to do them, which is not very often. But I would have had to have done them every day. All of them. Were I still raiding. Personally think we should be in for a shock next expansion. I am certain we're in for a shock next expansion. I am convinced, utterly convinced, that this expansion we are going to be dealing with the old gods. Done and dusted. Next expansion, it would not surprise me if Azeroth is waking up. That's what I think. I am absolutely certain there's going to be a shock for next expansion. Convinced of it, I am. I'm lost now. Where am I? WoD was way more buggy. Oh, I didn't. You couldn't move your character inside your garrison for 2 days. There were an awful lot of garrison bugs, but I don't think they affected as many people. Like, I only got hit by a garrison bug once. Like, when it hit people, it hit you. Because I remember I did the beta in WoD, and yeah, the stuff that was going on with garrisons was a nightmare sometimes. You just had to turn it off for the day. You couldn't play it. So I can well appreciate what it was like for people who copped it when it went live as well. But I don't think it affected that as many people as the bugs that have hit BfA. So it might depend on your own personal experience there. Probably easier to make a new game than squish levels. Well, maybe. Where am I going? Surely a 3rd and 4th year of Mythic plus Dungeons is going to carry the BfA expansion to its end. Well, yeah. I mean, there'll be new raids and dungeons coming out telling the story. There'll be presumably new zones as well. I mean, when you're doing an island-based expansion like they did with Legion, it's easy to do new zones. You just have another island pop up. Any news on the updates for AoE for Rets? No. I mean, you can see yourself. You can see what were. Let's have a look at the hot fixes. I don't think there really were any. There were some advertised hot fixes, but I think they were a load of crap, weren't they? So what did it say for Feral? All damage increased by 5%, as if that solves the problem. Shadow Priest. Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch damage increased by 20%. That's the sort of thing they're doing at the moment. Whereas what's actually needed is a fundamental change to some of the ways the abilities work. But they're not going to do that until at least 8.1. And even when 8.1 rolls around, I wouldn't expect an overhaul. But I personally haven't heard anything about Rets, even unofficially. It's just completely on hold at the moment. I don't think anything's going to happen till 8.1. What do I think about Warfronts? The same thing I thought about Warfronts when I tried them out in the beta. A load of shit. They were always a load of shit. The whole idea of them is poor. I don't see why anyone would want to do them other than for the gear. And I don't want to do them. I didn't even enjoy it in beta. And when we were doing it in the beta, I was doing it with guildmates. We were having a right good laugh, and yet I didn't actually enjoy what I was doing. The biggest improvement they've made is in storytelling. Yes and no. I talked about this a bit earlier. See, this is why when people ask if I can do timestamps on this, the answer is no, because sometimes topics come up and they come back again. Basically, and I said this before, and I genuinely mean this, the fact that so many people are talking about the story is a big plus in terms of the storytelling. However, the fact that the stories, or aspects, small aspects of them, not the whole thing, but aspects of the storytelling has been incompetent is not a good thing, you know. The fact when the story doesn't make sense, it's not a good thing, really. Next expansion, they will be playing Classic by then. No, they won't. No, they won't. The vast majority of people playing retail prefer retail. They're not playing it because Classic's not here. There are some people, quite a lot of people, I believe, that genuinely prefer Classic. I get that. But those sort of people are probably not playing retail. Because it's a different game. You think this is a Death expansion, next is the Old Gods expansion. No, I think this is the Old Gods expansion. Utterly convinced of it. I refuse to believe otherwise until something happens to force me to change my mind. You couldn't start the quest in WoD as Horde for almost 2 days. Yeah, but that's because we couldn't get online. That was a different thing. That wasn't the game being buggy. That was the servers not being able to handle the load. I mean, that's a different thing. You know, there's a difference between a bug in the game and you can't play the game because the servers can't handle the load. That's different. It might have the same effect on you, but it's not a bug. If BfA follows Legion, we'll kill Anzoth. Yep. In 8.2. Oh, I don't know about 8.2. I think 8.2 is just Ashara. Voyage to Voidlandia. What, Nyalotha? No, we can't kill Void Lords. How can we kill Void Lords? They are outside the universe. They are co-creators of the universe. No. We won't defeat the Void. That's the part of the fabric of the universe. That's undefeatable. What I'm saying is we can defeat the old gods on Azeroth. End of story. That's the limit of what we can do. Tank rewards for queuing is comically pathetic. What rewards do you expect? I don't know what the rewards are. We're going to kill the old gods so we can make way for the new gods. We're the new gods! Just look at what we've done. We're bloody gods already. I mean, we still get quests to go around finding pig eyes and things. And wolf tails. But we are basically the new gods. Gahoon is an old god. Oh, yeah. He's a manufactured old god. Basically, Uldir is a facility. This is what convinces me that we're killing old gods this expansion. Uldir exists to rewrite some old law that states that you cannot kill an old god without harming the host. So, the world soul. Whereas Uldir is a facility designed to test ways to kill an old god without harming the host. And Gahoon is the old god they created to be the test subject. He is the guinea pig. The fact that it looks like a rat's anus is notwithstanding. He is the guinea pig in this test. God, I've gone too far. Where am I supposed to be going? They call him an old... He is an old god, that's why. That is the part of the story of Uldir. He's a manufactured old god. You think that the old gods are just going to emerge in this expansion? Well, we see, this is the thing. We now don't even know if Yogg-Saron and Cthulhu are still alive. I strongly suspect... Basically, put it this way. The only thing that makes me unsure about Cthulhu is the fact that their storytelling has been a bit dodgy. Because Cthulhu is under Silithus. Spread a bit further afield as well. But he is ultimately under Silithus. Now, when Sargeras stabbed his sword into Silithus, if that didn't kill Cthulhu, and I think there's every chance it could have killed Cthulhu, if it didn't, why didn't he give a yelp? That would bloody hurt at least, wouldn't it? So I think Cthulhu's dead. I think that might also mean that Yogg-Saron, because it was the case, they told us when we defeated them, we only really defeated them, we didn't really kill them. Fair enough, makes sense. Maybe we have. Maybe they're going to change it. Maybe we did kill them. Maybe Sargeras stabbed his sword into the corpse of Cthulhu. Maybe Cthulhu has been dead ages. So, maybe there's only N'Zoth left. And G'huun, but I'm guessing some of you proper raiders have already taken care of G'huun. And Method will be sorting him out soon. Your Void Lord gets crushed by every... Well, you don't really... Yeah, I mean, it's not supposed to be an actual... Yeah. You've got a weak Void Lord, though. It's a copy, really. Because you also got to bear in mind, this, like, the Void Gods, they can sort of move into the universe, but they can only do it for a little time. Maybe that's the problem with Void Lords, why they're so weak. Because, they slowly decay as they're in the world. Don't know. A lot of your desire to play this game is built on steam generated in Legion. Feel that drive to play being leached out of me. What a trendy. Oh, I'm missing stuff again. Next expansion enemy will be the Horde versus the Light. No, it won't. Sylvanas is going to burn down Exodus. No, she's not going to be War Truth next expansion. I've sorted it all out. I worked out the entire story for the next 3 years. I've sorted it all out. Don't you worry. You just wait. I'm bound to be right on something. Did the old gods get along? No, they didn't. Not at all. They were working towards the same purpose, but they did not get on. There was no honour amongst thieves. They used to fight each other when they weren't fighting common enemies. Aren't all gods far larger than we've seen? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Huge big buggers. Spanning entire zones. So that's why we can safely assume, that's why it made sense when we were told we haven't killed Cthulhu and we haven't killed Yogg-Saron, because we were just basically poking at their toenail. But we're not certain. It was never officially stated that that was the case. So we're not certain. Well, it was officially stated, but not in the game or any novels, as far as I know. The only time they've been killed is when Aman'Thul ripped Yasharaj in half. Yes, exactly, yes. Which is where they discovered... But this was... this is what it is. It's like, Aman'Thul rips out Yasharaj, puts a bloody big hole in Azeroth. He goes, oh, shit, let's not do that again. Let's not repeat that with the other old gods. And after which they concluded that you can't kill an old god without harming Azeroth. Whereas what they should have concluded was you can't rip out an old god without harming Azeroth. They didn't try holding down the old god and twisting its head off. Maybe that would have done it. For all we know, it was just ripping it out by the roots that caused the problem. It's a bit like a leech, isn't it? If you've got a leech on you, you don't just rip it off. You squeeze it, don't you? Or something, I don't know. You do something that's not just ripping it off. Am I going to watch Method stream tomorrow? No, bollocks, I'm streaming myself, aren't I? Why do I watch Method stream? I don't even know why Method are streaming. What's the point? What are they playing at? Hi, Declan. Maybe Azerite is Cthulhu's blood. Well, no, to be fair, Magni is... Magni is... I don't think he's being fooled. I think he genuinely is speaking to Azeroth. So, Magni is not the final old god. We don't know that Azeroth is the planet, though. Again, there's a bit of speculation there. It might be possible. So we always assumed, well, I assumed, that when Azeroth wakes up, that's the world gone. But then we don't know that. It could be that she can awaken without actually harming Azeroth, the planet. And that she might not even be anything physical within Azeroth. It might be a weird wizard did it type thing. So it's perfectly possible that Azeroth can awaken, and Azeroth, the planet, is still fine. It might seem strange calling the planet Azeroth, because Azeroth is also a Titan. But, you know. So we don't know that the planet dies if she awakens. It was an assumption made. I certainly had that assumption. But we don't know for certain. And even if it was stated in official law somewhere, it doesn't stop them retconning it. They retcon everything else. Will I not raid? I won't raid. No, I'm not going to do any progress raid in this expansion now. Can't. I'm too busy. Because here's the thing. Like, I'm even busier with work than I thought. I knew I was going to be extra busy with work this year, but I'm even busier than that. I won't believe the things that are going on. And Mythic raiding requires even more stuff to be done outside of raids than even I thought it would. Because I didn't see the PvP stuff coming. How many old deer bosses did I kill this week? Just 5. On normal. That's it. That's my limit. Oh dear. No, Cthulhu, no. They have their different areas. Hold on, where is it? Always have me Warcraft Chronicles. Volume 1, of course. Volume 2 and 3 are very specific. When it comes to lore discussions, they always seem to be about, like, you know, the mythos of it. Oh, God, where is it? I can't find it. Where is it? There we go. Oh, no. Yeah. So, they've all got their own little regions. So, Cthulhu on... This is when it's like Pangaea. Cthulhu on the bottom left, which is like Southern Kalimdor. And Zoth is right on the far east, which is basically... Well, I suppose Eastern Kingdoms, but largely we associate Zoth with ocean area. You don't think Method sponsors care too much about their WoW team? No, I don't think they do either. No, not at all. Does it show the lack of competition? It might do. I mean, people are not expecting Method to have any serious competition, but if they're going to show their streams, then someone's going to watch them. Who knows? It's strange. It's a strange decision. I mean, you can understand, obviously, doing the Mythic Plus team, because the thing is, I mean, obviously, that's going to be very, very watchable. I don't think PvE is a very good spectator sport in general. It's much more of a participation thing. But as PvE goes, Mythic Plus is a lot more watchable than, say, raids. Plot twist, we finally closed the story of Neptulon. Game is over. WoW 2 is announced, maybe. Who knows? If Limit somehow beat Method, I would be surprised. Usually, when you get a guild that can do that, it doesn't do it in one tier. It usually gets close one tier, and then, like, Exorcist did the same thing, didn't they? They have beaten Method to a couple, but they came close in, like, Hellfire Citadel, didn't they? You know, they stepped it up then, got world third or something. And then they were into world first competing position properly for Legion. I don't know that Limit were that close. It would be interesting if an NA guild got a world first, because at that point, into the discussions would enter how much of an effect is it them getting a day early. In effect, it's not a full day early, of course, but you know. Whereas when it's a European guild that wins it, that doesn't really become as big an issue. Do I believe we'll kill Zoth this expansion? Yes, I do. Yes. Streaming to encourage competition? Well, it would have that effect, you would think, but it's a bit of a condescending way to encourage the competition, isn't it? It's a bit like Usain Bolt when the gun goes, holding back for a couple of seconds and letting the others go first. So, you know, it's a bit condescending. Take a long time and a lot of work for US guilds to become competitive. Well, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. That's why no one seriously really worries about the fact that they get a bit of a head start, because ultimately it never comes to anything. You just want to go to Nihilotha. We'll see. EU only wins because USA has to work. People keep coming out with this stuff. People in the EU have to work as well. In fact, there's people in Method that do have, or they certainly did when they were getting world first before, I don't know about right now, that have jobs. We have to work as well. No government in the EU pays people to be a gamer. If you want to be paid for doing nothing useful, you have to become a politician in Europe. Hopefully Ashara isn't a single raid kill. Well, no one's saying that we're going to kill her in the raid where she is. We'll just, you know, it might just be a defeat her. We might just give her a flesh wound. I'd be very surprised if we kill Ashara, to be honest. I'd be very surprised. I think it's much more likely we'll simply defeat her. What do you mean, random heroes? Maybe she continues through the expansion. I think she will. But instead of being insta-killed by random heroes, we were random heroes in vanilla. Now we are gods. We are the gods of Azeroth. I mean, we'll have defeated 3 old gods, plus killed dragon aspects and keepers. We've even nobbled a titan. Random heroes, my arse. Limit is 3. Are they still on 3 out of 8? Okay, I did see that earlier. Anyone know how long it's been out for NA? I don't know. Probably about, what, 7 hours or something? I don't know. Why does nobody want to kill Ashara? Because she was a villain that people were wanting in World of Warcraft for years, and Blizzard kept dangling the carrot. Ooh, bit of Ashara. Maybe you're going to be seeing Ashara soon. No, you're not. And they even taunted us with her in Legion with that quest in Asuna. But no. So now she's actually going to be a raid boss. Then we're not going to kill her off. It's like, all right, we're going to now put her in the game. Here you go. Oh, you've killed her. What a shame. She's gone now. Not that that ever happens. I mean, Blizzard have brought bosses back when we've killed them before. But it's a bit crap when they do. So I just think we'll defeat her. She'll go skulking away, and then that'll be that. She'll probably come back later. Maybe even she might even feature in a later bit of the expansion. Hopefully not as another boss, because that's just a bit crap. You know, it'd be a bit like, oh my god, they killed Kenny again. When are we going to create life on new planets? We already did. We went to Draenor, didn't we? I'm sure a few of them must have created a bit of life there. Oh, it's been out for 4.5 hours in the US, hasn't it? Okay. There you go. The turtle making it to the water. Bloody turtle. Dead. I keep thinking about letting them die on that world quest. Just going for a piss or something while they just get eaten. Talok and Mother seem to be quite easy. Well, they are the first two bosses. Talok, though, obviously on Heroic has the lasers going on. But yeah, I mean, they're the first two bosses. They're not supposed to be that bad, are they? Vectus was always an arsehole on the beta as well. It's a complete dick of a fight. And I think it's one of those fights on Mythic where raid comp's going to matter. I wouldn't necessarily trust in having lots of melee. I don't know whether it's one of those fights that maybe you don't really want a lot of melee. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily... I don't know. It's such a crap fight. So crap. I quite like Zekvos, though. I like that fight. That's decent. But I don't think Vectus is an enjoyable fight at all. Certainly not as melee. The lasers are... well, you say that. In an organised raid, yes, they're a non-factor. Because you kite the ads around the edge and you stand on the edge of the lift and it's no problem. But in a pug, where the tanks, like they were on the normal run I was in, will drag those ads all over the place... If you as a melee cannot be at the edge, you cannot see the lasers. Till it's too late. And any mechanic that's on Heroic, you're thinking in terms of how is it going to work in a pug? That's what I would be thinking in terms of. Four locks, 5 rogues. There's only so many guilds that can have 5 rogues. I think some other guilds will be finding some other ways to do it after a few weeks. Even if you AFK, enough turtles still make it to complete the world quest. Exactly, that's the perfect aspect of it. Because if they didn't, I'd have to come back from my piss and carry on doing it. But if I go away for 15 minutes, it'll do itself. But I will have the satisfaction of knowing that an awful lot of turtles died. See, that's the thing, though. It was, you know, it's a lot easier in live than it was in the beta. In the beta, it was actually quite hard to aim at the seagulls for some reason. So when I've done it in live, I've never once heard the expression, the cycle of life can be cruel. Heard it all the time on the beta. How do I find Ret right now? For what I need to do with it, fine, absolutely fine. Were I play more competitively, I think it would be fine for most of the raids as long as it's not a melee. There are some melee hated bosses, and for that it's not going to be at all fine. But for the other fights, I think it'd be fine. For Mythic Plus Dungeons, I don't think it would be good if I was really pushing. Don't think it's good. Well, I know it's not good for that. The AoE is appalling. Turtles equal Warfronts. Well, it's not that the turtle world quest is that annoying even. It's just in fact I don't blame Blizzard for the turtles thing. I blame Blizzard for Warfronts. It's the community's fault. The meme annoys me. That's not Blizzard's fault. Mother and Zul will be the pug killers. I don't know. I mean, I did think when I was testing it on the beta that Mother will be a bit spicy for pugs on Heroic. But I think every boss will. Even Talok, I think, will. I just think on Heroic, it's way harder for a pug than Emerald Knight. I think it is harder than Emerald Nightmare. I think the raid as a whole is at every level. But I think, you know, pug-wise, I don't really see anything that's easy. God forbid Blizzard encourage pugs to actually communicate. Well, I mean, they've put the voice comms in now as well. So there's no real excuse for not, I suppose. But what range spec would be best to play? Who knows? I don't know. Hunters are always really good. I mean, mages and warlocks tend to be fairly safe because they've got multiple specs. One of them is bound to be brilliant. they bring useful stuff as well. You know. So warlocks and mages are always the go-to ones. But hunters will be decent, I feel, as well. You feel like ret utility is more usable than in Legion? Oh, in dungeons, absolutely. No, I have no issue with ret utility in dungeons. I think it's great. Fantastic. Doesn't compensate at the very high end. But if you're just doing like moderate to sort of difficult-ish keys, yeah, rets are absolutely fine utility-wise. In fact, I've been really useful because there's a lot more poisons, like proper nasty poisons in BfA dungeons than there were in Legion. And in the group I do them with, for example, I'm the only one that can get rid of poisons. So, you know, I'm spamming cleanse toxins whenever I can. Word of Glory is really good in a dungeon as well. It's better in a raid even. Word of Glory actually could be useful in a raid. Yeah. So, but raid utility is still poor though. Just because Word of Glory is a bit better doesn't mean to say it's great in a raid. It's great in a dungeon, not in a raid. And everything else is still shit in a raid. No matter how much haste you get, you feel like you're fighting in slow motion compared to other classes. Well, no, I'm not sure I believe that. You know, I think it's still fairly fast compared to a lot of other classes. Can I imagine what's going on in LFR voice comms? I can only imagine because I certainly will not be joining it. Nothing would make me want to join an LFR voice comm. I'd rather get kicked. Do you think we'll see Khadgar by any chance? Who knows? I have this bugbear about Blizzard basically just dropping characters when they don't need them anymore. They just drop them. Maybe they'll throw him up for a cameo. Maybe they won't. I don't know. I think it's disappointing. I mean, I understand why he doesn't have a major role. I was talking long before it was even announced BfA that he shouldn't be a major character in BfA because then there's a danger that people who've only maybe played since WoD think that he's a bigger character than he really is. He's a big character, but you know he's had an extremely high profile in the last two expansions, so it's quite right that he took a step back. But there's a difference between taking a step back as a character and disappearing off the face of the earth. Affliction is born. I don't like Affliction, I have to say, but some people do. Demo is fun, but more or less useless in any rate. Yeah, I know. It's the same in Legion, really. You're so glad they made LFR loot the same as Mythic Naught, so you have no reason to ever go in that hellhole. Ah, well, it might have the same item level as Mythic Naught, but it hasn't got the same gear as Mythic Naught. So if there's a very nice trinket in there, unless, of course, you're doing content that gives you much higher item level rewards, then you might still want to go in. Because individual pieces that you can get from there, you don't get from Mythic Naught. Where's Terralion? Well, the last time Terralion was mentioned was in Before the Storm novel, so we assume that he's pottering around Stormwind somewhere. However, as I am utterly convinced that Illyria is going to play a significant role later on in the expansion, she must do, because her storyline had nothing to do with Legion. This idea of the Void elf was nothing to do with Legion. It was clearly setting up for a Void-themed storyline. And what have we got in Battle for Azeroth? Oh, a Void-themed storyline. So she's bound to pop up later in the expansion, which means Terralion probably will as well. What did you say? I missed that, actually. And the Vindicar's hiding. Or crashed. They probably crashed it, like they did with the Exodar. They're not very good at parking, Draenei, in case you haven't noticed. You know. You never see a Draenei spaceship the right way up on land. I don't think they've got reverse thrusters. I think that's the problem. They made a shiny new spec out of demo. It flows, makes sense, enjoyable, and then took a bat and whack. Oh, well. People will think that about a lot of things. I mean, at least though warlocks do get other ones. I understand, but this is again like some people will say, "Well, I like playing this spec, but I don't like playing this one." But that's why I always argue that the specs, the different specs for a single class, shouldn't play so massively differently, because then there is that danger. Because as a raider, as a warlock raider, you will be expected to play all the specs, because you're still playing ranged DPS. You know, as like a druid, you're not, because, well, if you're ranged DPS, you're a balanced druid. If you're melee DPS, you're a feral druid. If you want to play one of the other DPS specs, that's fine, but people don't expect it, because melee and ranged are different roles. Khadgar needs to be killed off. Why? Khadgar's nice. He's a lovely bloke. He's not getting killed off. No. Only one item from Mythic Plus. Yes. Well, in terms of getting the info now, I mean, it's not like anyone behaved any differently, is it? It's not like there'd have been anyone going, "Oh yeah, I'll do Mythic Pluses if we're going to get 2 items, but I'm not doing it for just 1." People will do it for just 1, because the expectation was you would only get 1 anyway. 2 was supposed to be moderate chance, you won't get it every week, and 3 was supposed to be quite a rare chance. But so, although it's disappointing, again, the poor communication, I think on this particular occasion, it's not a big problem, only finding out about it now. Turalian is in a Warfront, yes. I keep forgetting about that. You're quite right. It's in the Arathi Highlands Warfront. I remember now, yes. I do keep forgetting that. You hear the space goats let the gnomes pilot the Vindicar on the way back to Azeroth. No, I think they crash it themselves. I don't think you can even blame the gnomes for that one. Khadgar would never teleport gnomes to safety. He's a good bloke, I've told you. Or do you mean he teleported the Draenei out of there? You've only done a +7. Well, I haven't even done that. I've not even done that. But then again, I didn't have very good gear anyway. You can play all 3. You wish you played the worst performing of the 3. It's the most fun. Yes, it is your job. Well, say job to do top boss damage, most effective damage, which is not always the same thing, but it very frequently can be. The weekly chest has a higher chance of Warforged, and I'm not sure. It did do at the end of Legion. It doesn't necessarily follow that will carry on into BfA. I actually don't know whether it's supposed to have a higher chance or not. It wasn't something that was there all the way through Legion. It was introduced late on in Legion, that concept. Although it never seemed to work for me. I very rarely seemed to get a good Warforged piece, or any Warforged piece, whether it was good or not. You expected a chance of more than 1 Azerite piece. Well, I was hoping for the chance of an Azerite piece and a non-Azerite piece from there. Because this, I'd quite like Jess's Howler for a start, as a trinket. I like that. But I don't know. You had more fun farming the fishing artifact than BfA content. Oh, that's sad. It's been all right for me. I've quite liked it. In all day, more or less is all effective, with maybe one exception. Affliction is meant to funnel AoE. Well, for ranged, I would say there's a decent variety of types of fighting all day. The main problem is when you're melee. Some fights are absolutely fine, no problem. Some fights, less so. We don't need Khadgar. We most certainly do need Khadgar. He's the only one with any common sense. Jaina keeps flying off the handle. You've done a +10, really hard. Infested, yeah, infested sounds quite nasty, yes. I quite like the idea of the +10 affix though being attached to the raid. Quite like that. I think that's quite... Well, it depends on whether the affix is actually interesting or not. We'll wait to see what the next one ends up being. But, yeah. We weren't realistically going to be doing that because we had no raid gear or anything like that. Like 340-ish item level. Not really going to be doing a plus 10 regardless, even if we were much better for it. Oh, Motherload. Oh my god. I really didn't want to do... I didn't do it in the end on Mythic Plus. Someone said in our group that they had a Motherload key. No. No. I absolutely deplore the Motherload dungeon. Hate it. And it's not in a Shadow Labs type of way, where Shadow Labs in TBC for Heroic was the dungeon that was like, when someone said, oh, I want to go to this dungeon, it was like, oh, do we have to? But it was an all right dungeon. It was long and it was tough. Motherload, I do not find fun. I do not enjoy it. Speaking of Jaina, what the fuck was Anduin plan against the plague? Well, exactly. Again, this is another one of those piss poor storytelling things. He went to Lordaeron, the home of the plague, against a war chief who willingly uses the plague. Exactly. What was his plan? He didn't have one. Absolutely dreadful. And it's one of those things that absolutely, like the storytelling, there's really good things that have come out of the storyline of it. And there's been so many really bad things like piss poor. Exactly. WTF moments. Anduin is not a rubbish leader. I'll have to hide it, sorry. But that particular bit of the story, that was the story writer's fault, not Anduin's fault. Anduin didn't write his own story. I mean, the storytelling seems to be more about the big cinematic moments and less about whether it makes sense to get to those big cinematic moments. Sanguine, necrotic, infested. Yeah. Like, doing Sanguine Toldagor wasn't fun, I have to say. It didn't help that we pulled too many things. We shouldn't have pulled so many things as well when we were doing it. By now, you'd think the Alliance would have a counter to the plague. Well, even if they didn't, you'd think they'd at least consider it in their battle plans. You know. I could ban the word no, but I just chose not to. People haven't been abusing the facility. That's all. Jaina could delete the plague once, but not the second time in Alder City. She went, oh, maybe. Who knows? Alliance counter to the Blight should have been a crack team full of cracker crazy leopard. I don't think the leopard gnomes are on our side. I think that's the problem there. Not really on our side. We should have just sent in the gnomes. Full stop. And then let natural selection take over. If you survive, then you can be one of the ones who breeds, and we can breed an army of super gnomes who are actually potentially useful in battle. And if they die, well, they're weak. Do without them. But no, they didn't think of that. That's what I would have done. See how ingenious they are there. Throw them into the middle of the plague clouds and say, right, invent your way out of that. See what they come up with. If they introduced a hero class that can only play as a gnome, would I try it out? No, of course not. No. I mean, it pained me when I did a video about gnomes a few years ago, and I needed some footage on a gnome. So I had to create a gnome character to do that on. And I had to do it like in the early hours of the morning at a weekend so that no one online would see me on a gnome character. That's the lengths I went to avoid anyone seeing that I was playing a gnome. I'm certainly not going to actually make a gnome character to play. That would be ridiculous. I tried it once, just to be fair, you know, in the name of objectivity. I tried creating a gnome, and I could never see further forward than about 5 yards. You know, unless the ground is completely flat, you've got no forward vision. Do I think an MMO without a level cap could ever work? I wouldn't like to think so. I don't think it would be a very good one. But the thing is, though, I quite like core role-playing game design features. And what I want out of an MMO is a world. I like the exploration side of it and things like that. So that's why I don't like the idea of getting a level that doesn't mean anything. So that's why I'd rather they did the other way around and stopped giving levels out. I would rather there were no more levels in the game. If they cannot give us something for a level, stop giving us new levels. You know, because basically getting a level in World of Warcraft now is like going to a restaurant and they bring you a plate with nothing on it. And it's like, there's nothing on it, I want some food. Oh, sorry, I'll go and get you another one. They bring you another plate with nothing on it. Yeah, that's got nothing on it either. Yeah, but it's another one. I'll bring you another plate, shall I? No. Stop bringing me plates with nothing on. If there's nothing on the plate, I don't want it. That's how I view levels. If there's nothing with it, don't want it. Leave me alone. Upon reflection about Lordron, you think that the siege towers most likely had means to handle the plague. How did they have the means to handle the plague? They were made of wood. If they decided to throw a blight canister into it, I don't think the people in it were going to be well protected. But even the siege towers were themselves a bit of a head scratcher for a lot of people. Because, you know, as people kept saying, you're trundling siege towers slowly up to the you know, the ramparts and the buttresses. There's a bloody spaceship in orbit with a laser cannon. Where was that? Like I said, probably crashed into another Night Elf island. Where is Sourfang, though? I don't actually know. I don't know if he's still in Stormwind Stockades or if he escaped anyway, because we did open his cell. I don't actually know if he's supposed to have escaped or not. Or whether he just stayed there. No idea. No concept at all. That I find annoying. I know we're going to find out at some point in the expansion because he's going to come back again. But I don't know. I actually don't know where he is right now. Whether he's in the stockades or not. Because he certainly didn't come with us. But that doesn't mean to say, like I say, he didn't just take the opportunity during the commotion we were causing to nip out the back. You think we reach level 200 before they make us? We will as well. Hang on. Well, hold on. No. The game would have to be going for another 16 years before we can get to level 200. We're probably safe from that. Did you really see World of Warcraft going on with an expansion every 2 years for another 16 years? I'm not sure I do. I don't think he's in Fiji, if I'm honest. I think of all the places he might be, I wouldn't consider Fiji to be top of the list. But anyway, we've come to the end. I'm going to call it there. I have got stuff to assemble and things. So thanks for coming on, everyone. It was another good talk. I'll be back. Oh, well, I'll be streaming tomorrow, but it might well be Lord of the Rings online. But it'll be something anyway. I might go on Wire to begin with just to open my cache, but we'll see. So have a good night, everyone, and until next time, I will see you later.